What if there was an object, hidden from the eyes of men for centuries, that carried within its surface the very moment when humanity began its fall? Imagine a relic so powerful that even the highest councils feared its existence, a relic said to be written under the guidance of Metatron, the celestial scribe, the voice that bridges creation with the eternal. This object was no ordinary artifact of stone or clay, but a tablet, mysterious, glowing in visions, and lost in the sands of time. It was not a map of territories, nor a list of names, but a record of a fracture, a moment when mankind turned away from the divine light and embraced the shadows of forgetfulness. And tonight, you will hear its story. Legends whisper that the tablet appeared only to those who had been prepared, not by earthly studies, but by an inner calling, a vibration that aligned their souls with truth. Some claim to see it in dreams, others in visions during moments of near death, where the veil grew thin and the words of eternity reached their ears. What was inscribed upon it was not written in any human language, but in symbols of fire and light, patterns that resonated with the soul more than with the intellect. It was a message not meant to be read, but to be remembered, as if humanity itself once knew this truth, and then chose to bury it beneath centuries of noise and desire. But who was Metatron, and why would he hold such a key to the destiny of man? The ancients described him as the one closest to the throne of the divine, the angel who had walked as man and then ascended to record the laws of heaven. To invoke his name was to step into dangerous waters, for it was said that only the pure of heart could endure the vibration of his presence. And yet, his voice continued to echo through hidden texts and mystical traditions, pointing always to a lost knowledge, a tablet that contained the warning of humanity's great fall. The story of this tablet was never meant to be public, for its message was too unsettling, too direct in its confrontation with the illusions men had built. Those who stumbled upon fragments of the legend either disappeared into silence or were forced to cloak their words in allegory.
But even allegories carry power, and whispers about the tablet traveled through the centuries, growing in the shadows, waiting for the time when mankind would once again need to hear the truth. And that time perhaps is now, for the signs of the fall are no longer distant memories of myth. They are the very fabric of the world we inhabit today.
Stay with me, for what you are about to hear is not merely a tale of the past, but a mirror held up to our present, and perhaps a prophecy of what is yet to come. The story of Metatron and the lost tablet is a story of humanity itself, of what we chose to forget, and of the price we continue to pay for that forgetfulness. Among the countless names that resound in mystical traditions, few carry the same weight as that of Metatron. To some, he is an angel beyond angels, a being so close to the source that his presence radiates with unbearable brilliance. To others, he is the transformation of a man into a celestial scribe, a testimony that the human soul can rise to the highest spheres. What unites all traditions, however, is the recognition that Metatron stands as a bridge between two realms, the infinite silence of the divine and the fragile world of humanity. His name is not simply spoken, it is invoked, and when it is invoked, reality itself seems to tremble. In ancient Hebrew writings, Metatron was described as the Prince of the Presence, the one who records all deeds, both celestial and earthly. He is the keeper of the heavenly archives, the eternal witness of creation's unfolding. Every word, every action, every thought, it is said, finds its place in the book he guards. But beyond the duty of recording, Metatron was the one entrusted with safeguarding truths too vast for the human mind, truths that would only be revealed in times of great necessity. Among these truths was the story of a tablet, an object entrusted to him not to be displayed, but to be remembered in fragments, whispered only when the fall of humanity reached its darkest point. Legends say that Metatron's voice is not heard with ears but felt within the core of one's being. It is a vibration that pierces illusions, dissolving the layers of deception men place upon themselves. Those who claim to have encountered his presence speak of a silence that roars louder than thunder, a clarity that strips the soul bare, leaving it trembling before truth. It is in this silence that the memory of the lost tablet emerges, not as ink upon stone, but as a message engraved in the eternal records of existence. Metatron's name, then, is more than identification. It is a key, a frequency that opens doors locked to ordinary perception. Throughout centuries, mystics, Kabbalists, and visionaries struggled to grasp the magnitude of his role. Some saw him as the voice of divine mercy, others as the stern hand of judgment. Yet all agreed on one thing: he was the one who bore the testimony of mankind's journey, its heights and its falls. To invoke Metatron was to confront the very truth of what humanity had become and what it might yet be. That confrontation was not comfortable, for it revealed both the glory of man's origin and the shame of his descent. And hidden within that revelation was the reminder of the tablet, the relic that did not merely describe history, but warned of a destiny still unfolding. Thus, the name of Metatron echoes not only in sacred texts, but in the very struggles of humanity. Each time a civilization rises with arrogance and collapses in ruin, each time men forget the spark that unites them to eternity, his name resurfaces like a whisper in the winds. For his role is not bound to an age or a people, it is eternal, a constant reminder that what has been forgotten will one day return. And so, as we walk deeper into the mystery of the lost tablet, we must first understand the one who guards it, Metatron, the scribe beyond time, the echo that never fades. There are objects that the world remembers, and there are objects the world has been forced to forget. The lost tablet of Metatron belongs to the second kind. It was said to be no ordinary artifact of stone, no relic of clay or metal, but something born from the very breath of the divine. Its surface shimmered with symbols that seemed to shift under the gaze, never still, never fixed, as if they were alive. Those who claimed to glimpse it spoke of light trapped within matter, of a vibration that unsettled the heart and awakened forgotten memories. The tablet was not merely a record. It was a mirror, one that revealed the fracture of humanity, the precise moment when man abandoned the path of unity and chose the descent into division. The legends insist that the tablet held a dual nature. To the unprepared, it was terror, for its inscriptions revealed not the future or the past, but the naked truth of the soul. To the one who gazed upon it, there was no hiding, no excuse, no mask that could endure. Every flaw, every prideful thought, every forgotten vow lay bare, and the weight of that unveiling crushed the arrogant. But to the prepared, to the one who carried humility and sincerity, the tablet became a map, not of geography, but of being. It charted the return, the ascent back to the divine, the hidden path by which the soul might reclaim what had been lost in the fall. And so, it was called forbidden, not because it was evil, but because it was dangerous. Knowledge is never neutral. It transforms the one who carries it. Those who sought it out for power found themselves broken, their kingdoms collapsing like sand beneath the tide. Those who approached it in reverence were altered forever, walking between worlds, half mortal, half eternal. Ancient orders understood this paradox, and so the tablet was concealed, veiled in allegory, its existence denied in public, yet whispered in secret. The fear was not only of what it revealed, but of what might happen if mankind, unprepared and arrogant, laid hands upon it again. There are fragments that survived, lines hidden in mystical texts, echoes in apocryphal writings. They speak of the tablet as a gift entrusted to Metatron, the eternal scribe, so that its message would not vanish even if the material object was lost. Some traditions describe him carrying it into the heavens. Others tell of him burying it in a place between worlds, guarded by beings who do not age, whose only task is to protect the truth until the appointed time. The appointed time. Those words return again and again, as if history itself is waiting for the moment when humanity will be forced to remember. But what makes the tablet more unsettling is this: it does not simply tell of the fall of ancient times. It speaks of now. The pride, the forgetfulness, the hunger for power, all of it is described not as distant myth, but as a cycle, a pattern that repeats whenever humanity strays too far from its origin. And so the question arises, what if the tablet is no longer hidden? What if its message is already unfolding, not on stone, but in the very fabric of the world we live in? The fragments that speak of the tablet tell us that it was not a chronicle of kings or battles, nor a record of empires that rose and fell. Its words reach deeper, beyond history, into the invisible currents that shaped humanity itself. The tablet narrated not events, but conditions of the soul, turning points where mankind stepped away from the harmony of creation and into the chaos of self-exaltation. It described in cryptic lines and luminous symbols the rise of pride, the corruption of desire, and the slow erosion of remembrance. For the greatest tragedy of the fall was not violence or war, but forgetfulness, the forgetting of who we truly are. The inscription spoke of an age when humanity still walked close to the source, when the rhythm of heaven and the rhythm of earth were one. In that time, the soul of man shone like a flame that could not be extinguished, and every gesture was aligned with truth. But then came the whisper, the subtle seed of separation. The tablet described how mankind turned inward, not toward the heart, but toward the self-image, a reflection built on shadows rather than light. From that moment, a fracture appeared, a wound in the fabric of human existence. The world continued to shine, but within man, the memory of eternity began to dim. The tablet's narrative was not linear, but cyclical, suggesting that the fall was not a single event, but a recurring pattern. It warned that whenever humanity sought to build without the divine, whenever it exalted knowledge without wisdom, whenever it placed the self above the whole, the descent would repeat. Civilizations would rise in splendor, but they would crumble under the weight of their arrogance. The tablet described these cycles as echoes of the first fall, reflections that multiplied through time, each one more severe than the last. In its symbols, the cycles spiraled downward, warning that the final collapse would come when mankind no longer remembered it had fallen at all. Yet within this dark account lay a hidden message of hope. The tablet did not only narrate decline, it also hinted at return. It spoke of those who would awaken, who would feel the stirring of memory even in the depths of forgetfulness. These souls would become like living fragments of the tablet itself, reminders that the truth could never be fully erased. The tablet was thus not only a record of loss, but a call to remembrance, a prophecy that the path back to the divine remained open, though narrow and perilous. The words it carried were said to burn into the soul of the reader, not like fire that destroys, but like fire that purifies. The more one looked, the more the tablet seemed to speak directly, bypassing thought, reaching into the marrow of being. And there, in the silence after its message, lay the most haunting truth. The fall of humanity was not something of the past. It was still unfolding. The story of the tablet was, and remains, the story of us. If the tablet carried within it the memory of humanity's fall, then it also carried the seed of liberation. But truths of such magnitude are rarely allowed to walk freely in the world. The story of the tablet is not only about what it revealed, but about what was done to ensure its silence. For there were always those who feared its light more than they feared the darkness of ignorance. To control mankind, it was easier to bury the knowledge than to let it speak. And so, councils, priesthoods, and hidden orders wove a cloak of secrecy around the tablet, suffocating its voice before it could awaken too many souls. Legends speak of moments when fragments of the tablet resurfaced. A mystic would stumble upon a symbol in vision. A scholar would uncover a line hidden in apocryphal texts. Or a wanderer would hear whispers of a relic that dissolved lies with a single glance. Each time, those fragments were quickly seized, hidden away, or dismissed as dangerous heresy. Libraries burned, scrolls vanished, and those who carried the memory of the tablet were silenced by exile, ridicule, or death. The fear was not superstition, it was recognition. The tablet did not merely tell a story, it unmasked the machinery of power itself, exposing the illusions by which rulers controlled the masses. What was silenced most violently was the idea that humanity itself was responsible for its fall. Empires preferred to blame demons, fate, or distant gods. For if man could see his own reflection in the tablet, he might also awaken to his own power to return. That awakening threatened not only religious hierarchies, but political ones. A humanity that remembered its divine origin would not be enslaved by fear, nor seduced by false promises. It would become sovereign again, and sovereignty was the one thing those in power could never allow. Thus, the tablet became not just forbidden, but erased. Stories of its existence were recast as myth, its guardians demonized, its message distorted. In some traditions, Metatron himself was portrayed as too distant, too severe, or too incomprehensible, so that few would dare to seek him. The very name of the tablet was lost in translation, hidden beneath allegories of towers, floods, and gardens. But even the deepest silencing cannot erase a vibration that belongs to eternity. The truth slept, buried in layers of denial, yet it continued to pulse beneath the surface, waiting for a time when silence itself would begin to crack. And perhaps that time is now. For the same forces that once suppressed the tablet's message are still at work today, weaving distractions, feeding illusions, keeping humanity blind to its condition. Yet, just as in the past, the truth resists, rising through cracks in the walls built against it. The silencing of the tablet was never complete. It could not be complete, for what is eternal cannot be destroyed, only forgotten, and what is forgotten can always be remembered. The tablet's most haunting message was not that humanity had fallen once, in some distant age of myth, but that the fall was continuous. It described a descent woven into the very choices men and women make each day, choices that slowly sever their connection to the eternal. At first, it was subtle, a whisper of pride, a turning away from the sacred toward the self. But with time, the fracture widened until entire civilizations carried within them the echo of that first deviation. Humanity, once radiant with remembrance, began to forget its origin, and with forgetfulness came the hunger to replace the lost light with shadows of its own making. The tablet spoke of the signs of this descent with terrifying precision. It warned of an age when men would exalt knowledge but abandon wisdom, when they would build towers of power yet lose the ground beneath their feet, when the earth itself would become a resource to exploit rather than a living presence to honor. In those times, violence would not erupt suddenly, but seep gradually, disguised as progress, as ambition, as necessity. The more mankind glorified its own creations, the further it would drift from the source, until even the memory of light felt like superstition, a relic of primitive minds. That forgetting was the true fall, for it placed illusion in the throne once occupied by truth. And what was the fruit of such descent? Division. Humanity, once united in the harmony of creation, fractured into nations, castes, ideologies, and conflicts. The tablet described how the very illusion of separation bred fear, and fear bred control. Wars became not only battles of armies, but wars of the spirit, tearing apart the inner unity of man. Pride whispered that each individual was the center of existence, and in that lie, the bond between human and divine frayed further. The fall was not a single catastrophe, but a slow unraveling, a corrosion that spread until it infected every level of life. Yet even as the tablet recounted this dark narrative, it left no doubt that the fall was not irreversible. For woven into its account was the recognition that humanity still carried the spark of its origin, a seed untouched by corruption. The tragedy was that most forgot this spark existed, burying it beneath layers of distraction and desire. But for those who remembered, even faintly, the tablet became a mirror, reminding them that the fall was not destiny, but choice. Humanity's collapse was not the final word, it was a condition, one that could be reversed if enough souls dared to awaken. And so, the story of the fall was not meant to condemn, but to awaken. It was not written to paralyze, but to shake man from his sleep. For the greatest danger was never destruction, but the quiet comfort of forgetting. To remember is to resist the fall. To awaken is to step once more toward the path of return. And perhaps, as the tablet warned, this very age is the echo of that warning. A time when humanity must choose whether to continue its descent or to remember what it once was. If the tablet could not be destroyed, then it had to be protected. Across centuries, whispers tell of those who became its guardians, not rulers or kings, but mystics, wanderers, and visionaries who carried fragments of its truth in silence. They were not chosen by lineage, nor by worldly power, but by an inner resonance, a frequency of the soul that aligned with the memory the tablet preserved. Some were scholars hidden in libraries, cloaking their writings in symbols so that only the initiated could understand. Others were ascetics who carried no possessions, yet bore within them the living echo of Metatron's voice. They were scattered, often unknown to one another, yet bound by a common thread, to safeguard knowledge until the world was ready. The Guardians did not possess the tablet in the ordinary sense, as one possesses an object. They held it in fragments, visions, dreams, codes woven into prayers or chants. They knew that to reveal it openly was to invite destruction, but to hide it entirely was to betray their task. And so they walked the narrow path between silence and revelation, offering hints to those whose souls were stirring while shielding the unprepared from truths that would overwhelm them. They became living thresholds, standing between the lost memory of humanity and the possibility of awakening. Many traditions speak of secret brotherhoods and sisterhoods who preserved these fragments. The Essenes in the deserts, the mystics of the Kabbalah, the Sufi poets who wrapped fire in verse, all are said to have carried glimpses of the tablet's message. In temples, in caves, in forgotten monasteries, symbols were carved or painted, not as decoration, but as codes. To the ordinary eye, they were ornaments. To the awakened, they were reminders. Through these veiled transmissions, the tablet lived, never whole, never complete, but never absent. Even when empires collapsed and libraries burned, the Guardians carried the vibration forward, hidden within chants, rituals, and allegories. Yet to be a Guardian was no triumph. It was a burden, for they lived under constant threat of persecution. History remembers them as heretics, witches, or madmen, for the world rarely honors those who protect truths it is not ready to face. Many paid with their lives, others with exile or silence, but their sacrifice was not in vain. For with every life lost, the truth seemed to sink deeper into the collective memory, like a seed buried further in the soil, waiting for the season of awakening. Their task was not to preserve the tablet for themselves, but to ensure that when humanity cried out in desperation, the message would rise again. And so, the Guardians still walk among us. Perhaps not in cloaks or temples, but in the ordinary faces of those who feel a strange longing they cannot explain, a memory that does not belong to this world. They may not even know they are Guardians, yet within them burns a fragment of the tablet's light. For the truth is not bound to an object of stone. It is alive, carried within souls that refuse to forget. And one day, when the appointed hour comes, these scattered fragments will converge, and the voice of Metatron will be heard once more through those who dare to remember. The tablet spoke not only of the past, but of cycles that would return, signs that would reappear when humanity approached another threshold of collapse. These signs, once dismissed as myth, now unfold before our very eyes. The Guardians had warned that the world itself would echo the forgotten truth, that nature, society, and the human spirit would all reveal the same pattern, the fall, repeating itself. And in this age, the resonance of that prophecy is unmistakable. We stand amidst the very conditions described by the tablet, as if its words were awakening not from stone, but from the fabric of reality itself. The first sign was division. The tablet warned that humanity would fracture, not only into nations and tribes, but into inner fragments, where the individual would feel torn from within. Today we see this fracture everywhere, conflict between peoples, but also within hearts. The loss of inner unity manifests as restlessness, anxiety, and despair. A humanity that cannot remember its own source turns against itself, searching for meaning in possessions, ideologies, or fleeting distractions, yet never finding rest. The tablet described this as the echo of the first fall, the symptom of a soul that has forgotten its origin. The second sign was arrogance disguised as progress. The tablet foresaw an age when mankind would stretch its hand toward the heavens, building wonders of knowledge and technology, yet in doing so would forget wisdom. Power would multiply, but compassion would diminish. The earth would be stripped, not revered. The sky would be measured, not honored. And what was once seen as sacred would be reduced to mere resources, objects to exploit. In this prophecy, the grandeur of human achievement would not mark ascension, but descent. The higher man climbed without the divine, the further he would fall. The third sign was silence, yet not the silence of peace, but the silence of memory erased. The tablet warned of a time when the very idea of the sacred would fade, when the language of eternity would sound like fantasy, when the presence of the divine would be ridiculed or forgotten altogether. In that silence, humanity would stand in greatest danger, for a soul that no longer remembers it has fallen cannot desire to return. And here, in our time, we see the spread of that silence, a world that has learned to speak in noise yet forgotten how to listen to eternity. But the tablet also foretold something else, that with the return of these signs, a stirring would awaken in the hearts of a few. While the majority would continue to sleep, lost in division, arrogance, and forgetfulness, others would feel a strange pull, as though an ancient memory were resurfacing. These souls would not need to see the tablet carved in stone, for its message would arise within them, written into the very depths of their being. And through them, Metatron's voice would return, not as thunder from the sky, but as a quiet fire spreading soul by soul, until remembrance once again begins to heal the world. Though the tablet itself may remain hidden, its voice has never been entirely silent. Many who walk this world have felt the presence of something greater, an echo that seems to come not from outside, but from deep within. That echo, some believe, is the voice of Metatron. Unlike human words, it does not arrive through sound, but through resonance, like a vibration striking the strings of the soul. It comes in moments of quiet, when the noise of the world recedes, or in dreams that feel more real than waking life. Some experience it as a sudden clarity, others as a whisper urging them to remember. Always it carries the same essence, a reminder that we are more than what we have become. Mystics describe Metatron's presence as a fire that does not consume but illuminates. To encounter it is to feel every illusion fall away in an instant. Masks shatter, pretenses dissolve, and what remains is the raw truth of one's being. For some, this truth is unbearable, and they flee from it, returning to the distractions of the world. For others, it is liberation, the first breath of awakening after lifetimes of sleep. The tablet may be lost, but its message is alive in this voice, a living transmission that flows not through ink or stone, but through the eternal archives that Metatron himself guards. In recent times, many have spoken of dreams where vast symbols of light appeared before them, unfamiliar, yet strangely known. Others have reported moments of synchronicity so precise they felt orchestrated by a hand beyond chance. Still others have heard a call in meditation or in silence, as if someone were speaking directly into their consciousness. Whether one calls it intuition, higher guidance, or the voice of an angel, the essence remains the same, the remembrance of what humanity has forgotten. It is Metatron's task not to reveal new truths, but to awaken the old ones, the truths buried within the very fabric of our souls. And this voice is not reserved for the saints or the mystics alone. It reaches ordinary men and women, often when they least expect it. A mother looking into the eyes of her child may feel it. A traveler standing under the vastness of the night sky may hear it. A broken soul, weary of life's illusions, may suddenly sense a presence that reminds them they are not alone. These are not accidents. They are reminders. They are glimpses of the eternal scribe whispering across the veil, calling humanity to remember before it is too late. The tablet described the fall, but the voice of Metatron describes the return. The return is not dramatic, nor does it come through thunder and earthquakes. It begins in silence, in the courage of a soul willing to listen. In each who hears and responds, the lost tablet is reborn, not in stone, but in living memory. And perhaps that is how it was always meant to be, not a relic locked away, but a truth awakened within us, carried forward until the day humanity remembers its origin and chooses once again to rise. The story of Metatron and the lost tablet is not only a tale of hidden relics or forgotten myths. It is a mirror held up to us in this very moment, reflecting the truth of our condition. The tablet described the fall of humanity, not as a single tragedy lost in the past, but as a pattern that repeats whenever we choose forgetfulness over remembrance, pride over humility, illusion over truth. We see the signs around us now: division, arrogance, the silence of memory erased. And yet, within the darkness, the voice of Metatron continues to speak, calling us not to despair, but to awaken. The tablet was never meant to paralyze humanity with fear. Its purpose was always to reveal both the wound and the cure. It reminded us that though we fell, we were never abandoned, for the spark of the divine remains within. The fall is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of a choice. At every moment, humanity is invited to remember, to turn again toward the source, to become once more what it was always meant to be. That choice does not belong to nations or rulers alone. It belongs to each of us, here and now, in the silence of our own hearts. Perhaps this is why the tablet was hidden, why its truth was scattered into fragments across dreams, texts, and visions. For the true revelation is not meant to be read on stone, but awakened within the soul. No power, no counsel, no empire can silence a truth carried in living hearts. And if you are hearing these words and something within you stirs, an echo, a memory, a fire, then perhaps you are one of those fragments. Perhaps you are part of the guardianship that ensures the truth can never fully die. In you, the tablet is alive, waiting to be remembered. And so the question remains, will we continue the descent, repeating the cycle of arrogance and forgetfulness, or will we answer the call of remembrance? The voice of Metatron does not demand submission. It invites awakening. It does not impose. It reminds. To listen is an act of courage, for to remember is to shed illusions, to confront the truth of who we are and who we have become. Yet in that confrontation lies freedom, the freedom to rise once more, to transform the fall into the path of return. This is why you are here, listening now. This is not coincidence. It is part of the unfolding, part of the awakening that has already begun. And if you feel that resonance, then speak it, declare it. Let it echo beyond yourself. Write these words not just with your fingers, but with your soul. I choose to remember what was forgotten. In doing so, you are not only affirming a truth, you are joining a network of awakened souls, an invisible constellation of light that grows each time one more person remembers. The tablet may be lost to the eyes, but through us, it is found again. And in that remembrance, the path of humanity turns once more toward the light.